I left Kansas University in my junior year. I'd had been on a USO show the summer before and came down with a horrible case of strep throat, and came back to school that fall, tried to get through my music education classes and conducting and singing, and I just got sick to the point where I couldn't make it any longer. So I took a incomplete, went home, tried to get healthy, and while I was there, I got drafted. They changed the, what was it, 2S status of student. So I thought, I don't want to be drafted because I have no control over where I go. I didn't think. Turns out later you could have, just by your test scores. So what I did was I went to see a movie called GI Blues with Elvis Presley, and I thought, you know, he's a tank driver and he's in Germany, and Juliet Prowse is his girlfriend. I think I'll do that. That sounds like a good idea. So I went down and enlisted for 4 years. And out of that 4 years, they guaranteed you'd be in Germany 36 months, which turned out that wasn't true either if you didn't do everything, but we believed it at the time. So that's how I got to Germany. I went to Baumholder in 1966. I went in February, took training in Leonard Wood, then took AIT training in armor at Fort Knox in the middle of the summer. That was good. And then took off for a little town called Baumholder, which was southwest of Frankfurt, north of Kaiserslautern. And went up to Grafenwehr and got cold and got frostbite and had a lot of good fun. Drove over a lot of buildings and tore down things, ran over chickens, you know. And we got back, and one of my buddies in the same company I was in came up to me and said, I read an article in the Stars and Stripes magazine, and it says you can audition for a soldiers chorus down in Stuttgart. And they'll cut orders from the AG so you can go. They can't stop you. So we wrote a letter, and we got orders cut. And Top Kick called us in one day and said, I see your boys are trying to get out of my unit, and I'm already shorthanded. I hope you both make it. And, you know, like, your soul belongs to me if you come back. So we got on the duty train. We rode down to Stuttgart. I walked into the audition, and here was Jim Doyle, Lieutenant Doyle, who was the XO then. And he and I had gone to KU together. He was working on his master's in piano. I was working on my bachelor's degree in music education. And I used to work part-time in the snack bar. And he kept trying to come from different venues, trying to get in and before I get him a cup of coffee. I had a little game going. So I walked in and I saw the lieutenant there. I went, well, I got this made. This is great. And they looked at me and says, no, you're going to have to audition. Not only for Captain Casey, but there's some guys that are in the chorus outside the door listening. And if you don't sing and yet you get in the chorus, they're going to figure that you're one of us, and they won't talk to you. They won't have anything to do with you. And in any case, you know, thought you were a plant. So I sang the recipe number 15 from the Messiah, and Jim knew it, and so it went well. But the poor fellow, I wish I could think of his name, that told me about this, got me interested, got me down there, he didn't make it. So he had to ride back on the duty train with me. And I went to pack my bags, and he went in to see the first sergeant. And I don't know whatever happened to him. No, I got accepted the same day. But the orders were coming. I mean, I knew I was going to go, so I was covered. And when you got the orders cut, you went. So I left Baumholder, came down to Stuttgart, and started my 30 days training. And as most times, everybody's on tour a lot of the time. So you had to learn your parts individually. And then when they came home, you had to sing all the parts a cappella. And so my first, I think everybody remembers the song they sang for their audition, and I think they remember the first time they were on the risers. Yeah. And mine was in Stuttgart. There was a big hill, and Stuttgart kind of set down in a valley. You kind of had to drive in a circle to get down into it. But up on the top, there was a big communication tower, and there was like a hall area that we sang. I can't remember the exact name of the place, but that was my first show. And as everybody does, you didn't know all the choreography, you just knew the music. So somebody would grab your tail and pull you down, or somebody would lean over and go, relax, I'm going to tug on your shirt. And of course, like Magnificent Men in their flying machine, they just pull you apart like this. But it was fun, yeah. And that was Stuttgart. That was 66.
Was that outdoors?
No, it was indoors. And then near the end of 66, I've been on the Riser a couple months, and I think we did the Christmas tour along the 5K zone, ended up in Fulda, and then sometime near the end, if maybe even before we moved, we joined, 7th Army and USWR joined. So we got transferred up to Heidelberg. And that was one of the greatest moves ever made. And then I stayed with the chorus about a year on the risers. And then I spent a year as their logistics NCO when I made E5. Made E5 in Fulda in '67. And then I moved into the office and I was in charge of making all the mimeograph copies of where you go, who you meet, what time you eat, who's your contact, where the bus is, what time. And you just set up all the logistics of the tour. So I had a lot of time. That was a whole year I did that. And I had a lot of time in the evenings when the chorus was gone, there was nothing for me to do. So I got into a community theater out of Roadside Kaserne between Mannheim and Heidelberg. And there was a civilian that ran it, and it was Christmas time, and they were looking for somebody to sing Melchior from Mall of the Night Visitors. Well, I'd already done Balthazar, the bass, and I wanted to do the baritone. So, excuse me, I went out and auditioned and got the part of Melchior and did that, and did a couple other little plays with them, and then the civilian got rotated back to the States. And they didn't want another civilian, they wanted to use somebody in the Army, save them a little money, and let them run it. So I applied for the job, and he recommended me, and I got that. So the third year, I left the chorus and went to run the theater. So it was about 60, 65 seats. We put on 4 musicals, 2 dramas, and 2 comedies.
So you were a year on the risers.
Year in the office, and a year running the theater.
Now, did you choose to go from the risers to the office yourself?
I think it was offered to me, and I thought it was a good idea. I think I was tired of being on the road and broke down buses. So it was kind of nice, and also I was married at the time, so it was nice to be home more, have things to do with my wife in the evening.
Your wife lived with you?
She was with me, yeah. She came over after I got to Baumholder.
Where did you live?
Well, we lived first in Svetzingen in a little one-room apartment. It had the kitchen, the living room, and the bedroom all in one room on the 3rd floor. And another couple lived in an exact room like ours on the other side, and we all shared a bathroom on the 3rd floor. And that was for about, I don't know, 2 or 3 months. It got to be too crowded, so we moved to Dick Boyd in Maryland, and Marty and I all moved into a house that an architect had built in Grombach, which was just mostly a little south and mostly east of Heidelberg. All German community, so it kind of helped us learn German a little bit more. And we lived there in his retirement home since he wasn't ready to retire yet for a while. And then we got a great deal, Marty and I, on a apartment right downtown, right off the Hauptstrasse, right by the Holy Ghost Church. So we moved in there and settled up, and yeah, it's a good time.
What do you remember about being on the risers that year? Were there any really memorable concerts or places that you had?
They were all great. There were so many of them I couldn't begin. I've got medals from some cities would give you a medal, some would give you a little ribbon, some would give you a book. I think I've kept most of those things over the years. I remember doing a big show in Essen, and I believe there was the Austrian national champion, a girl that yodeled, and her brother and another fellow were had like an accordion and a guitar or a zither, and she stole the show. I mean, but probably 10,000 people in the hall, and she sang like an angel. And of course, yodeling is not the kind we think of, but the true Swiss and Austrian yodel was wonderful. I remember that. I think one of the fun times was with Horst Jankowski at the Bodensee. He was a big star in Germany, wrote Walk in the Black Forest, had a singing group, about 15 or 16 singers that traveled with him and kind of did the Norman Luboff, did some swinging stuff, and some of them were Americans. We did a couple TV shows with him down at the Bodensee. That was fun. Well, no, because I don't want to incriminate anybody. But also, no, actually it was. The interesting thing about a small amount of men, I think we had anywhere from maybe 18 to 30 people on the risers at any time, depending on who was sick, how many trainees came in. So we were always a small group, but we could put out a big sound. But everybody had that little particular quirk, whatever it was. Everybody was unique. I mean, we all came together to sing, but as soon as the singing was over, we had a group that moved over here, or a group that were more cut-ups. Some people were serious. Some people that, there was a fellow named Lynn Novy from Chicago that was a great jazz and classical guitar player, and he would go in the bathroom and sit with his knee up and a flamenco guitar, and he had the extra long nails to play. And he would sit there and practice for hours, you know. Still a great guy, but he just had his little niche, you know. But everybody was unique. And as most musicians, there's that little extra quirkiness about us, you know.
So even.
Yeah. Yeah, I played, we had a little jazz group, because I'm a piano player, though I play stand-up bass too. But Steve Grimm would sing. I'd play piano. I think we had a drummer and guitar player. I can't even remember the other people's names. And we do little jazz things in clubs around Heidelberg and Mannheim. I had met a family over there they lived between Mannheim and Heidelberg. And the mother's name was Rika Corell. And Rika was a big recording artist for Philips label in England, but she was a professional whistler. Kind of like, was it Fred Lowry that whistled Behind the Mighty, the blind gentleman that whistled that for the movie years ago? Well, she was that quality of whistler. And she'd made several records in Germany where the orchestra plays, full 18, 20-piece orchestra, and she would whistle the beautiful melodies. And so she got a recording of the orchestra minus her live performance. And she owned a little guest house. And you'd come in and have dinner in the evening, and you'd sit down at the table, and all of a sudden music would come on through the sound system, and it would be the full orchestra she'd gotten at the recording studio, and then she would stop table to table and whistle live while the music was playing. Wonderful lady, and I got to be very good friends with her son, and Ernst was his name, and we would put on disco shows, and we'd put on parties and dances in there upstairs. He was part of the theater group, so he would come and help build sets and stuff, and yeah, and we might spend a lot of time with the Roten Oxen and Zeppels. There was a piano player at the Red Ox, I remember, that would play all the German songs. Of course, we knew most of them. We'd sing along, and we'd drink out of the Stiefel, remember the glass boot? And whoever drank the last bit, the person before them has to buy the next round. So you either left enough that the guy after you couldn't finish it, and that's how you learned who could drink the most. Or you drank it all and make the guy in front of you pay for it. Then we had a drinking game at Rika's place where you'd sit around, you get a glass of beer, and you get a little shot of Ratzeputz. Ratzeputz is a schnapps, but it's kind of a pink color, and it's made out of the ginger root. So it's not necessarily high in alcoholic content, but the ginger is real hot. It's called the devil's drink. So what you do is you all take the shot, and you make a Prost, and you take the shot, and then the first guy that reaches for his beer to cool his mouth off, or a tear comes to his eye, has to buy the round. And then you start over again. Wasn't that fun when we were youthful and could do those kind of things?
So these were Army Corpsmen?
Some would come along. No, it was a lot of German people too. We would sit at the Stammtisch, if you know what that is. The Stammtisch, in every guest house or little place where you go to drink, there was usually the owner had a table that was theirs. And you were invited to sit there. It might sit there empty, and then people standing outside waiting to get in. But that belonged, and that was called the Stammtisch, the table. And so we would mostly get invited there because I knew Ernst and stuff, and we sang some German songs. They always loved the soldiers' chorus, the Soldaten, you know. They thought that was pretty cool. Everybody knew us as the Red Jackets, you know. Yeah, fun. Well, I stole some of the guys from the chorus. When I knew they were going to be in town, I stole Steve Grimm and Bob Triplett to play in The Odd Couple that I directed. And because Triplett would have been the great play off of Felix off of Oscar, Steve Grimm. And Lieutenant Park, who was our XO with Lieutenant Antonio, or Lieutenant Antonio. He played the Prince in in one of our musical plays from Student Prince. Yeah. And too, we had a couple brigadier generals that came out and volunteered to build sets. We had German civilians who came out and sang in the chorus. We had some wives that played flute or played harp that could join us in the little orchestra, you know. And we had a good show. I loved it all. Probably, pardon me, my favorite one meal would be Rumpsteak mit Zwiebeln. And the rump steak is off the regal end of the rump roast. And they usually cut it in a thin steak, almost like a breakfast steak. And they'd serve Zwiebeln as the grilled onions. So they'd serve that with grilled onions and a little bit of garlic butter, or herb butter, on the top and let it kind of melt, and then bring Spätzle, which is the little German noodles, and some red cabbage. It was kind of sweet, and some good Brötchen, kind of crispy on the outside. When you broke it open, there was always one side that had that little extra piece of dough that hung out. We call that the heart. Always grab that and dip it in a little butter. And But I remember when I went to Italy on a leave, I was already at the theater then. I learned to say, give me a large salami pizza and a large beer. And I ate that for about 10 days, because that's all I could say in Italian. But we went to Monte Carlo and did a little gambling. Got an interesting story there. When I was there in '68, I was in the casino gambling when dollars were worth something. And next to me is a race car driver from Monte Carlo. He took me for a ride in his Lamborghini Miura S, I think it was called, around the track, which was closed for the race. But that evening he took me around the track to show me what it was going to be like, and brought me back to the main thing. And he ended up winning that year. Now I got to think of his name. Graham. Isn't that funny how I remember the story? That was probably it. Graham Hill. Well, no, that was just a car he had down there. Yeah, Graham Hill it was. Couldn't think of it for a second. So, I mean, that was kind of fun to just run into people. Seemed like the more important people you met that you didn't oogle all over them, the more they accepted you. No. I don't remember ever being asked for an autograph. I remember the people liking us. I remember when we went to cities where there were no American barracks, or where there wasn't a Bundeswehr or a Dutch army, they could put us up in their BOQs. A lot of times they'd put us up in hotels, or they'd put us up with families. And usually, in every city, and it was kind of like Wales, in every city there's a chorus. Some group of people love to sing music. So they would find families that would volunteer out of this chorus to take one or two of us. And so we always got a chance to meet the families, become close to them. They taught us a little German, we taught them a little English. I correspond with several families from Braunschweig, which was just on the outside of the East German sector. For many years, their kids were from 3 years old. I think there was 4 of them. The last one was like about 14, and now the last time I talked to them, and then I lost track of them, the boy and the girl, the oldest two, were both doctors and up in their mid-40s now. And the little girl that looked to be about 3 or 4 years old is probably 30 now, 35. After hours, everybody had their own thing. Lynn Novy worked in the practicing his guitar. There was a group called the Fifth Squad, and all they were, it was Phil Lawson and Gravenstein, Willie Gravenstein, Tommy Demings, Tommy Tenner, Phil Sanchez, I think one other guy maybe. But they weren't excluding themselves from the chorus. They were just a clique of guys that marched to the same drummer. They like to be kind of off the wall and just do some funny stuff and they just enjoyed each other's company. Now, when the time to sing, we all got together and got along fine. But after hours, it was everybody's go wherever you want. Played in Storyville. Jeep Sudduth played down there. Gary Fishbaugh played down there. Matter of fact, I remember hearing the Buffy St. Marie tune, Until It's Time for You to Go. Fishbaugh, I think, was singing it one night. We all were folk singers then. We loved it. I like jazz, but we also sang folk singing. And yeah, you go down the spiral staircase and you got down to those circular rooms, the circular ceilings and great acoustics, and yeah, good time. It took forever to learn how to find it, but yeah, continue. It's just like the chorus. You can be gone for 2 years and you get everybody back together in 5 minutes. You picked up right where you left off. Everybody still jokes around, everybody still pulls everybody's string, and that's just like a good family, Well, I want them to come to the reunion, period. That's it. Don't mean to be serious. We have a lot of fun. We laugh and giggle. We all remember things in a different light, so we all get a chance to get our view of what bus broke down and who did what to who. But it's like a big family, and I don't care if you've never been to one. Please, everyone that's ever come to one says, I wish I'd come sooner. I didn't realize how much fun it was. Now, there's only 20 to 25 of us anytime, depending on who's sick, who's been in a car wreck, who can't make it. But it doesn't make a difference. We still put a great sound. Most of the people have still sung most of their life. And if you haven't, we'll work it in. There's no problem. But there's so many people we'd like to find, so many people that it took us 4 reunions to find Captain Casey. But we got him with his wife, Linda. Now they realize what it was like. So I can't explain it on a tape. I can't explain it looking at a lens. The only way you can experience is come and spend the time with us. Now, but we start that much ahead of time to be sure that we've got a place to put a hotel where everybody can be, get a decent rate, find a nice place to have our German dinner, have a good church service Sunday morning, and we always like to sing in church. But there's a lot of camaraderie and a lot of friendship that have lasted, and people I hadn't seen in 40 years that I just got right back with them again, just bonded with them. So it's, I don't know how to explain it. You can't explain it. You have to come to a reunion. If you know of anyone that belongs to the chorus that we haven't found, tell them to get in touch with us. Somebody you can find. I'm Dave McCubbin in the phone book in Overland Park, Kansas. Larry Potts and Barbara are in Overland Park, Kansas. John Casey owns a bed and breakfast in San Antonio, Texas. You can look up on the internet. There's
O'Casey's.
Yeah, O'Casey's, for God's sakes. I mean, please get him. Jim Wright here in Big Spring, Texas. Larry Nordloff in St. Louis. Richard Boyd in St. Louis. People that have hosted in the past. We've lost some guys. Steve Grimm is gone. Steve was one of my buddies. A lot of people's buddy. Several others have been sick or not ill. Some this year might not be here next year. We don't know. And I'm not using that as a ploy to get you here. Please just come one time, and if you don't like it, you don't have to come back. But I guarantee you, you will.